Welcome to the DeFi Standard. This is Patty XRP, and Mickey will be on shortly, guys.
I'm here.
Oh wow,
Mickey be fresh.
what perfect timing! That's pretty incredible. Love that. Cool. Well, Mickey, I don't know. Did you see that the Chris Larson and Brad Garlinghouse's lawyers just put out a response to the latest SEC pushback on their motion to dismiss?
No, I did not see it. Let's hear about it.
Yeah, so basically, like Jeremy Hogan pointed out a couple days ago when they responded, they brought up how the SEC was, not even addressing the fair notice issue. So they said that, obviously the SEC didn't even respond to this because there's no argument that they could make when they have two commissioners in a statement going towards a case that just concluded. So they also go on to say that it's very clear that they can't prove that Mr. Larson or Garlinghouse was reckless, as nobody actually knows in the industry what's a security or not, and push further, saying that like their charges of aiding and abetting Ripple needs to basically be dismissed at this point. So
Nice.
they were very pointed in it for sure.
Nice. So it looks like this is going to get dismissed first. Hopefully, I mean, Hester's comments and Royceman over there really helped us big time, the XRP community and Ripple themselves.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And another thing with that I was seeing is they pointed out that the cases that the SEC referenced as like, citing case law for their whole stance that they just took, they kind of shut all of those down. The Kick and Telegram cases had no charges against any individuals. And then the other one, which had to do with something called the NAC Foundation, it was charges involving fraud, which we know they allege no fraud against Chris Larson or Brad Garlinghouse. So they kind of, tore apart their sources. Yeah, so I thought it was a pretty good response from their team. Curious to see what the legal experts are going to say in our community, but
yeah, it's always nice having the Deetons and the Hogans put through everything for us. It's nice, gotta say, because none of us are really legal experts or attorneys when it comes to law like this. So it's nice having these. That's the one part that's nice thing about the XRP community is that we have so many diverse different people in it, to help share the information, especially like these attorneys and Deaton representing the community. It is really nice, and we should be grateful for that. But the case is going in a good direction. I mean, I don't think anyone could really argue that this case is going in a bad direction for Ripple and for XRP community. I think right now everything has been going our way, and it continues to, and it's just pushing over to where it's a tipping point. And I wonder how would the price react if we got the Brad and Chris component of the Ripple lawsuit thrown out, and the case still went on, but that part was thrown out. How would the XRP price react to something like that? I think that would be interesting to see.
Yeah, definitely would. I don't think it would be something crazy, but I would definitely expect to see like a 10 to 20% move up like the day that happens or the 24 hours following. That is really interesting because like ultimately, that's not going to decide the case, like XRP's case, whether it's a security or not. Like whatever happens with them really doesn't matter as much. What it does say though is that their case is not, entirely overwhelming of Ripple and both of them, that, at least some of it's getting dropped and it's continuing to move in Ripple's direction. So I think that's where, people would want to buy. They're like, all right, this is tipped enough in favor of Ripple that I'm really ready to get back in, kind of deal.
Well, you think about what they have to prove from the SEC. They have to prove the burden is on them to prove basically that Brad and Chris willingly knew this was a digital security and then recklessly sold it. Now, they didn't sell any of it in the US, so I don't know how much they're going to be able to prove of them actually selling it to begin with. And then you have the fact that two of the commissioners are coming out now saying, well, there's no basically way the industry knows what's a security and what's not. Even in your enforcement actions, you can't even provide some clarity. So with this fair notice thing here, and I think it leads into it here. What happens is Brad and Chris's is like the first step. It's that fair notice is going to get that released too first, I think. And then you'll see the fair notice will go into the whole case itself of how could have Ripple sold so-called investment contracts if they didn't know what the laws were. And that's where the fair notice plays in. But the first step of that would be getting Brad and Chris's dismissed.
Absolutely. And so I think I don't know. I don't have anything else to add on what they brought out. So do you want to move into some Songbird network
Yeah.
and Flare Finance, experimental finance talk?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the experimental ExFi. So it's a new term for us, and I'm sure many of you here as well. ExFi, EXFi stands for experimental finance, which is kind of DeFi, just really advanced, and it's going to be on a network that will act as a test network, but will have real value on it. So this is something new. We really don't know. The only comparison we could make is to Kusama. It's the only thing out there that has done something like this, and it has been very successful.
Absolutely. And I kind of
I don't know
like
if we had XFi though.
no,
Yeah,
they've
just
started
starting it,
I
right?
think like yeah, what Akala, who's one of their big DeFi projects that's going to be on Polkadot, just launched their DeFi platform, or at least some of it on Polkadot. So it's starting to come along over there. Or sorry, on Kusama, not Polkadot. They launched on a Kusama parachain, and that's kind of setting them up for what they're going to do on Polkadot when they eventually have the parachains live over there. So they're getting there. I kind of do. I like this term XFi because hopefully we can use it to distinguish between if we're talking about Songbird and Flare Network in the future as those two grow. And also, I kind of liked how they were calling the Songbird network the XNet, so like experimental network versus Flare Network is the main net. So hopefully that's some like semantics that can help us out as we all kind
Yeah,
of
we need the
discuss.
terminology.
Yeah, we still need one for the F assets. So,
Mhm.
I mean, I would be a big fan of bird assets. I don't know why.
Yes.
That's
Well,
just
now we
funny to
know we're
me.
getting another thing that's a little confusing here is all the Flare finance assets. So now we're going to be getting S Flare airdrop to us. This is the new token on top of Songbird that you'll be airdropped. So now instead of just Spark and Y Flare and then Songbird, now you have S Flare,
Yeah.
which you will get for having Songbird.
Yep, absolutely. And also, they're going to have, instead of YFIN on Songbird Network, they're going to have SFIN. So that'll be the Songbird version of YFIN. As far as I know, it seems like all of the supplies are going to be mirrored exactly between the two networks. They didn't really state the total supply in the blog, but based on what they said the airdrop for the S Flare token is going to be, I think that they're probably going to have the same supplies. So it should be pretty similar there. I'm definitely expecting less value on Songbird than Flare, you know, when they're both alive together, but it's an experimental test net, so I think that makes sense to me.
So
Now,
no Songbird $100 price point when it comes out.
oh boy, no, no, no. There's no Spark $100 price point anytime in the near future, in my opinion. But yeah. So I mean, we'll see. Like, I'm expecting it to be, if it's a few pennies, I'd say that's a pretty high price, and people are a little more excited about it than I thought. If it's below a penny and it's like maybe half a cent, then I'll be like, all right, a little less than what I was thinking, but definitely somewhere in that range, I would guess. Like
Mm-hmm.
somewhere from less than a penny to maybe 3 cents or something, I feel like is a good estimate. Just like looking at how Kusama came out, how much supply there's going to be, the general reaction to it, and that kind of stuff. I am curious to see though. Flare Finance made a good point in their blog that this Songbird token is going to have value for developers as well, because ultimately they're going to have to put some through into their projects that they build out in the future on Songbird. So it'll get use like that, and we'll see how much testing actually happens on the Songbird network. I mean, the more people that decide they like Flare and want to start trying to build on it, that's just going to drive more production on the Songbird network, and ultimately could go back into the token. So it's definitely something
Now,
to monitor over time for sure.
Mhm. Songbird also is going to have a much less supply. So long term, Songbird will only have that 10% inflation of 15 billion,
Hmm.
where Spark is going to have a 10% inflation of 100 billion. So the supply of Spark is going to grow at a much faster rate than Songbird. Plus, it's going to have the 3% allocation released to everyone monthly, and that's something Songbird won't have. So when it comes to tokenomics long term, it's going to be interesting because Songbird is going to start out like we think much less in value. But over time, with having less of a supply, it will be interesting to see how prices go long term.
Yep, definitely. And
Less rewards though.
yeah, for at least from the FTSO, and that's because, when you drop the entire supply at once and then you base the inflation rewards off that entire supply that was dropped, there's going to be more people vying for the same amount of tokens as if on Flare, they're distributing over 3 years and they're using that total that's going to be distributed over 3 years as the number for the inflation rewards that you're going to multiply the rate by. So that's why the yield differences are there. And Mickey, I want to pose this question to you from Zerpson Q. He said, do you see SFIN having more or as much importance as YFIN?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think it's going to have importance. If Flare Finance's ExFi platform is successful over there on Songbird, they're going to release a lot of new technologies and innovations that will be composable with Flare Finance on Songbird before Flare. So I think SFIN, what is it called? SYFIN?
It's SFIN, yeah,
SFIN. A lot of tokens. I think it will be as important. I think YFIN still has the upper edge, but I wouldn't discount SFIN as something that is not going to be worth it. I do think it's going to be worth it. And it's going to be interesting to see how these turn out. It's really how much development and activity goes on the Flare Finance XFIN platform on Songbird. But I do think it has the potential. What do you think, Patty? I think so.
I mean, I wouldn't say as
Long
far
term.
as price, but I mean, it is going to be important for the Songbird network. The only thing that I would say that it's probably going to be a little less important than YFIN is Songbird network is going to be subordinate to Flare network governance. So if Flare network governance decides they want to build something, they want something built on top of Songbird that's going to be new and innovative that may cause problems, to me, like there should be a discount on those tokens, especially compared to the ones on Flare Finance, just from the fact that it's more likely something bad could happen with the protocol to it than it would be on Flare Network. So, we'll see with that, and then I would also imagine the price probably isn't going to be the same just because I would think that more value is going to be running on Flare Network rather than Songbird. You still there, Mickey? I don't know
Yeah,
if
I'm
you cut
here.
out. Oh,
No, I
cool.
think that was a good point that you brought up. I think long term, it's going to be interesting to see how Songbird really develops, because it might just be a test net in the really beginning here, and then things go live on Flare. And if both networks are running pretty good, it's going to spin off into its other network fairly quickly, within the first year at least. Let's put it that way. But you're right, it will be subordinate to the main net, and that's one thing we do have to keep in mind. So with that said, I feel like everything is going to be less value on Songbird, but by doing that, it also could push the value up of the assets that are on the Flare network
Yep, I hear you. And
than what we thought.
yes, yeah. So here's a question from Z Riley, and he was saying, so we will be using our actual XRP, Stellar, Litecoin, Doge to mint, S assets, whatever the Songbird form of F assets is, on the Songbird network. And yeah, you have the ability to do that. Now, I'm curious, I don't know if it's if it's going to be worth your time to risk it as far as earning rewards, because Flare Finance isn't going to have any F asset pools or anything like that on the Songbird network during the kind of the testing period before Flare mainnet goes live. There's also not going to be these asset pools to reward you with Songbird daily if you do mint your assets onto the network. So I'm not sure what's going to come out about that. I would assume there has to be some incentive they're planning on with it. Otherwise, it's like, who's going to do that unless the team's just going to take it on their own to do their kind of testing with it. We also know like Trustline and Probity will be out, so that would probably be one thing where you could mint XRP onto Songbird and use it in testing for the Probity and Trustline version on Songbird. Let's see.
Yeah, you don't have to use your XRP on Songbird. There's no requirement for that. And if you do, you might want to just use $20 just to test it. It's not there to earn massive rewards the way it is on Flare Network. That, out of all the components, I feel like on Flare is going to be the most risk and where you should use the least of your value that you have. Like XRP, there's not financial advice here, or nothing I say or Patty says is financial advice, but you shouldn't really be using a lot of your XRP, I think, minting on Songbird initially. I think that it's there for a testing ground, and let's see how it goes. Until we get more information on that, I don't really want to say much.
Yeah, I figured they'll do something at some point, because otherwise it's like, well, what was the point? I feel like testing the F asset system is one of the biggest parts. So I assume they have some kind of plan for it. They just aren't talking about at this point. Let's see. So Pied Piper was asking, can we still do everything from the Bifrost wallet on Songbird? Absolutely. They said they're going to be supporting the Songbird network, allowing you to store your tokens with them, and also having the functionality you would have with the Flare network through um, Bifrost on Songbird too. So you should be all good to go there, and using Bifrost for that.
Mhm.
And let's see, there was
I
another.
think Decent should probably be supportive. The question is, we don't know if there's going to be a Ledger Live app for that or something like that with MetaMask. We just know right now Bifrost, and it's probably likely Decent will support.
Yeah, I bet
Otherwise, we'll keep
MetaMask
you
will
updated.
too.
I'm sure they will, but we'll keep you updated right now. I think publicly Bifrost is the only one who has said something.
Yeah, and so somebody was asking, will you be able to do this stuff from your Ledger Nano? So I'm doubtful that Ledger Nano is going to have plugins for Ledger Live that work with Flare Network or Songbird at the beginning. I mean, I just feel like they don't have a lot of functionality in general. So for them to provide that at the beginning of a new network, I would doubt. However, one thing you can do if you want to continue to use your Ledger Nano, there's a pretty easy to use hookup where you can have your Ledger Nano connect with MetaMask, and then you can use MetaMask to do stuff on Flare Network and potentially Songbird. So
Now, do you
that
have
will
to
be one
plug, if
route.
you have a Nano S, do you have to plug it into your laptop or
Yeah, if
computer
you're
every
gonna
time you
do,
want to use it?
yeah, if you're well, yeah, if you're gonna do anything that like involves you
Hmm.
moving funds or signing a transaction, you
It's
have to
pretty much
have,
everything.
yeah, you have to have it plugged in unless you have the X and you can do Bluetooth. But I don't know,
Yes.
I don't have an X, so I've never used that.
So we just have to keep in mind here with your Nano ledgers, like that was something you pretty much, you're going to have to plug that in if you want to, do different things on the Flare network and with Flare Finance. Just something to keep in mind that, is going to be part of using your Nano ledgers with these DeFi and with these Web3 dApps.
Yes. Oh, sorry. Could you repeat that?
Well, with your Nano S, you're going to have to get used to, if you want to
Oh, yeah,
use
yeah,
that,
yeah.
you're going to have to plug it into your computer, So now you're connecting your Nano ledger to the internet, just so you know. Like,
Nice.
it's
Sorry.
no longer offline. That's what I'm just trying to say.
I
It's
got
no
dis
longer.
yeah, I got distracted. I saw Matt Hamilton's in the stream and I was like double
Hey,
taking to
Matt.
see if he was, yeah. So yeah, there's actually I see like a lot of people from the community, so really cool.
Nice.
Yeah,
I
but
should look at the chat.
yeah, let's see. So, also some other things as far as this timeline with experimental finance on Songbird. So, the only things you'll be able to do until the Flare mainnet goes live is you'll be able to provide liquidity between the Canary Dollar and Songbird. Additionally, you can stake Songbird or DFLR in the Flare farm in order to earn DFLR tokens that can be swapped over to Flare Network to claim YFLR when the network's live and they do their airdrop. So that's pretty cool that you'll be able to, participate in this ExFi network and that or protocol, and then you can move some of your rewards over to Flare. But just DFLR is the only thing you're going to be able to do with that. So at least you can kind of start building for Flare if you want to in that way. And then additionally, they'll have Flare loans up and running, and that will be how the Canary Dollar gets minted, which is the Songbird version of YUSD. And we learned a little more about that Flare Loans platform. We know that it's at least in some way similar to Liquidity protocol. So it's like liquidity without the D. If you want to check that out. And interestingly enough, they actually use interest-free um, loans on that platform and stabilization pools to handle the liquidations. And they mentioned in this blog that they're going to have stabilization pools that you can earn some of this DFLR through during the kind of period before Flare mainnet goes live. So I think that's cool. A couple little I guess, like tidbits that they threw in there that we still don't know as much about, though.
Yeah, this ecosystem just keeps just getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's getting more complicated and more complex and more to learn now, since they kind of doubled everything. And it's not just we're getting double Flare, now we're getting double Flare Finance, and now their thing. So it's definitely going to become a little confusing for everyone to keep track of the terms. So on the website, I think we're going to put together more of the terminology so everyone could understand what S-Flare is, what S-Fin is, and Y-Fin, and then all these different liquidity pools are going to be on Songbird, and then they're going to be on Flare, and then soon we're going to have the XRP Ledger side chains, and it's going to be a big ecosystem.
Yeah, I definitely somebody mentioned to me doing that a while ago, like a Flare glossary, and then I kind of forgot to do it. But yeah, I could definitely I'll
Now we
start
really need
working.
to at
Yeah,
this
we
point.
really need to now, and I'll start working on that on the website for sure. That's actually a
I
pretty simple
I
thing to
think we
put
have enough
together.
terms that to the point where we can fill up a good page.
Yeah, I know. I just want to get my claim or my idea for bird assets out there instead of S assets. I think
Okay.
bird assets preferable to me.
Bird assets. All right.
I
B
mean,
assets.
so like if you think about it with Flare Finance, we have the Y assets there and then the F assets for like, Flare layer 1 minting through the
Mm-hmm.
F asset system. So if they have S assets already on ExFi, then I see how we could get confused between like
Hmm.
minted assets on the Flare versus like wrap stuff in the future. And that's
Well,
what one thing also. So all those tokens you can wrap onto Flare Finance, you're going to be able to do that onto the ExFi protocol. Once the Flare mainnet goes live, they'll be unlocking all that stuff. So I mean, it's
but at
basically
first you won't,
yeah. At
right?
first you won't.
At
It's
first
just
you won't be able to do all that. It'll only be three. There'll only be Flare X, right? Flare Farm and Flare Loans before Flare mainnet goes live on Songbird. Correct?
yes, yes,
Okay.
yeah. And so like
So
they'll have
everyone knows.
APY cloud and governance staking pool and all that good stuff on Songbird as well. Um, so that'll be cool that we see that. And I think in the future it'll be a little more like easy to tell these differences. Obviously, this is like a pivot or a change up late in the game that we gotta work through now. And in the future, like before we see stuff launch on Flare, like we'll probably see them announce what they're doing on Songbird Network, and then it'll move from there to Flare Network, and it'll be more regimented. Instead of like, oh, we had Flare this whole time, and then they decide to go with this innovative Canary network.
Mhm. It's going to be interesting to see if we get new applications that come out that try to do like really new things, and they weren't maybe going to do that on Ethereum mainnet or on Flare, but they might give it a try on Songbird. It's going to be interesting if we see developers go in that direction and give some of these things a shot that maybe they never would have, since there was just test nets with it was just like token test net money that was really fake money. It didn't have any value. Now you have a network, it has value, but it's also a test net too. So it's kind of this in between hybrid thing. It's going to see how that will boost developer adoption, if any. It's definitely going to be interesting because what Polkadot's doing is great, but it's not using the Ethereum smart contract ecosystem. So I wonder if the ETH developers would see this as a playground, possibly to build different things in an environment that has very low gas fees and it has the Ethereum smart contracts already. Would they be apt to jump over and test different things there? So it's going to be
That's a
interesting to see in the
possibility
future.
for sure.
Mhm.
I will say with Polkadot, some of their parachains, like they have the ability to use the EVM if they want to. The only thing is, if you're going to get a parachain slot, then you are going to have to pay for it, whether it be or paying for it's kind of a weird term since they have this setup where people like stake either the dot or kusama token in order to allow them to lease a spot, but that means you have to get a backing to get in there, and Songbird seems like there's lower barrier to entry and anybody can spin stuff up. So I hadn't thought about that's an excellent point, that we could see
Mhm.
people trying to build products on Ethereum, but maybe they try it out on Flare first with this, or sorry, Songbird with the smart contracts. That's
Mhm.
very interesting. We'll have to see how that plays out.
Yeah, I was just thinking of that. And then just so everyone knows, so Spark dependent applications are kind of the special applications. You could compare those to kind of like parachains on Polkadot, even though it's very different. They're premium. So the governance of Flare, which would be us, the Spark owners, would have to decide which Spark dependent applications we'll approve. And now Spark dependent application means that it integrates its smart contracts into the Flare time series Oracle price feeds. It is governed by the Spark holders, and it integrates with the F asset system too. So those, and it uses Spark. So those things would be voted on by the Spark governance holders, and it would be tested on Songbird first. So those would be special applications. F asset system is really the first of those, just to clarify there, because the F asset system is an application. It's a Spark dependent application. It's one type. There could be different types of Spark applications in the future.
Well, yeah, that was a good thing to bring up. And I see some questions I want to hit on. So, big bull stocks, I like this one. I like where your head's at. Will allowing us to see good signal providers on Songbird, could this centralize the FTSO on Flare network when it launches? And I think if anything, over time, the Flare time series Oracle should become more decentralized. So, like at the beginning is probably the period of time that there would be the most variance in how good it does. And the reason I think that is like there's only so much like data and areas on the internet that all these signal providers can use to find price feeds from. Sure, they can have maybe some algorithms to try and determine stuff, but over time I think they'll see how others that are faring well are doing and kind of adapt their strategies to where they start evening out. And additionally, there's this randomness that goes on with the FTSO. So it's every like so many FTSO closings, it will choose one of the 10 time series that it's starting out with. A time series is going to be like Bitcoin Cash to USD, XRP to USD, or Spark to USD, or whatever one that you want to have. That's involved in the FTSO at the beginning, and it'll randomly only select one of those for the reward period. So that means like you'd have to have some signal provider that's so good with every single asset and all that. So I think there's a lot of like different things in it that should help like you know level the playing field, I guess, between all of them over time. But we'll have to see how that plays out. Yeah, so that's a good question, though. I mean, it's something we have to watch. If for some reason it does seem rather centralized, then we may need to find some solutions to that. And then let's see, Adam Cobb asked, will Songbird replace or reflect the Flare Finance Launchpad? I assume Launchpad was designed for what SGB is doing as far as testing and launching new products. So the reason why it won't affect it is that Songbird is its own like operational like decentralized blockchain, and Songbird is the native asset of that. Songbird token is the native asset of that network. And if you compare that to Flare, it's the same thing what Spark is to Flare. The Flare Finance Launchpad is more for DApp tokens and things like that. So it's a little different use case. So that's why I don't think it would be causing any replacements. To get on Flare Finance, maybe they use the Launchpad on Songbird rather than the one on Flare Finance to give out some of their tokens. Or
Yeah, I could see that.
they just wait to do that until they get on Flare Finance, and that's when they distribute their actual token. Um, but yeah, I think that's a fair question there. Let's see. Um, okay, so let's see. Is there anything
Oh, I
stop?
like this one.
Oh, go ahead. You
SB
do it.
assets.
You do it.
SB assets sounds good.
Oh yeah, that would work too.
I like
Yeah,
that one.
for sure.
Viral bot. Nice.
And then, where was this question? Okay, Alex Hill. Is there anything stopping an agent from reminting an F asset after they receive it from putting up collateral? So this is a good question. There is a mechanism built in place. So when an agent puts up Spark collateral for somebody else to mint FXRP, they're kind of short that FXRP on Flare network, but since they receive the XRP on the XRP ledger, they're long on that side. So if their collateral ratio starts getting out of whack or they're going to have trouble, they can technically take the XRP from the XRP ledger, mint it into FXRP, because that XRP will now be given to a different agent to handle redemptions with it. And then they would mint FXRP and bring it back to the F asset system so they can start removing collateral and closing out their position to get them back to a better collateral ratio. So that's one of the hedging mechanisms that works with how this system is designed. But that's definitely a good one. Let's see any other questions we got. Okay, does every app need to be tested on Songbird before it's taken to production on Flare? No, it does not.
No.
I think there is, incentives for people to want to do that though. Maybe I would be a little more skeptical about a project, if they're not like going on Songbird beforehand and it seems like every project's doing that, maybe that could be a red flag. If they are going to be an SDA, like Mickey was explaining, a Spark dependent application, I would imagine that governance is probably going to want them to test it on Songbird before bringing it over to Flare.
Because then we could see it in action. We could test it. We could see what it's about. We could discuss it. And, that's the governance rights of the Spark holders to decide that. And it's much easier to do if we could actually see that product in action and test it than being just like a theoretical white paper.
Yeah,
But regular
absolutely.
applications could just spin up. Nobody's stopping. Like the Flare network is still an open, decentralized public blockchain. So anyone could still issue a token on the Flare network, can spin up any application. They don't need permission from anyone. It's only the Spark dependent applications that they need permission from the governance.
Yeah, and to point out, since Matt was in here, part of that proposal for the XRP Ledger federated sidechains, some of the benefits that the Ripple X team listed was the fact that you can use these sidechains to test things that may go on to the XRP Ledger mainnet in the future, with real world value. So, the Ripple team was seeing that, and then we'll see what the validators ultimately decide if they want to have that sidechain functionality added to the XRP ledger, what they all think. But then we see the Polkadot team thought that, and now the Flare team likes that. So this may start becoming a trend for newer, layer one blockchains. We'll have to see. But I thought that was something important to point out.
Yeah, no, it's no coincidence that David Schwartz and Matt Hamilton both said that about test networks. How, to really do a test network, you need real value there to truly test it. And, it's interesting that now Songbird comes along and now we got these side chains. So very interesting times. The whole blockchain space in crypto is evolving rapidly. And what was in 2018 and 2019 no longer apply. And in 2 years from now, 2021 won't apply. So it's evolving so rapidly.
Absolutely. And so Ferdy's in here. Good to see you, man. Hope you're doing well. So he asked, can you see Songbird as Flare Finance 2.0, not beta, but live? So I would say Songbird is going to be Flare 2.0, or like maybe Flare 1.1b or something like that. I mean, the thing is, Songbird Network will probably be more advanced in future like technical implementations for blockchains. The Flare network governance and stuff, I imagine, is going to want to test any major overhauls to the base code for Flare network on Songbird. And that's what we see happening with Kusama and Polkadot. Kusama is getting a lot of the things that are supposed to be like really great about Polkadot beforehand. So they're all tested and good to go. And if something bad's going to happen, it's going to happen on Kusama and not the flagship protocol.
True, but now let's look at now. Kusama might be more advanced with the technology, but when it comes to actual value, what's the difference between Kusama and Polkadot in market cap? One's number 55 and one's what, number like 7 or 8?
Yeah, Polkadot's in the top 10, and
Top 10.
Kusama's like 53 or something like that last
Mm-hmm.
time I checked.
So it's still a big difference. It shows how even though Kusama has the more advanced technology, it's been out there longer, Polkadot has the name and it has the most value in it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't even have smart contracts yet.
Yeah. They're planning on it by the end of the year. They basically have some goals they have to hit with Kusama and the parachain testing there. So eventually we'll see that come to Polkadot, which will be cool. And I think, Mickey, we're planning on maybe covering Polkadot a little bit more in the future too.
Yeah, well, we're going to do a video or two here on it. We're not going to go too crazy
Yeah.
covering it, but we are going to give an overview for the community. Since, there is a really close overlap with the development of how it's taken place on Flare and Songbird, and how Kusama and Polkadot kind of are similar, and it's paralleling that. So we are going to cover it, and I do like the Polkadot project myself personally, and I'm personally invested a little, not a lot, a little.
Yeah, I've been buying over the past few weeks as well in this down market. It's to me, it's like I'm gonna have a lot of Spark in the future and also XRP still. So those are both like Byzantine agreement consensus networks. So Polkadot is a little different. They use like that sharding technology and running parallel chains. And there's some overlap with the XRP ledger, at least like, how the community governing the XRP ledger has been working so far. Like one of the big things is they're trying to keep the XRP ledger mainnet as lean as possible, which is why, they're going the sidechain route. And that's one of the big things stated like throughout the white paper for Polkadot is like the Polkadot, what they call relay chain, which is kind of what I would liken to what the XRP ledger is. They try and keep that as lean as possible, so it's just handling like the bare needs of what all these like parallel chains need. So there's definitely overlap in both ways, and we could see possibly the Flare network or maybe the XRP ledger have a para chain bridge that connects to them in the future. So what's cool about that is Polkadot governance can actually come up. They can like choose these common good parachains or like the slots for them, so they could just allocate it without people having to put funds up to back it. So that's really interesting. And then Polkadot also has a project that's trying to connect to the Facebook's DM permission blockchain. So that's another thing they got going on. But yeah, it'd be cool. They specifically state in the Flare white paper that they are possibly looking to have Flare propagate assets onto Cosmos and Polkadot in the future. So, it's definitely on the minds of the creators at least.
Yes. So before we wrap this up, I just want to address one thing. There is a connection between, so Agile Games here with James says, do you think DM, which is the Facebook Libra project, will switch from Polkadot to Flare Network? So it's my understanding that there's one parachain that's going to connect to DM from Polkadot. So that's still a ways off, but it's in development there. They're trying to bridge DM to Polkadot through one of these parachains. I forgot the name of it. Um, I just forgot the
I
name
can't
off the top of
remember
my
the
head.
name of it either. Yeah.
Brooklyn sent it to me. I forgot the name. But yeah, it's possible. I mean, two Flare Network too. I think all these networks are going to be interoperable over a period of time.
So
Every one of them. The applications are going to run on top of all of them in the not near future maybe, but over the next few years, the applications will be able to be run on top of all of them.
yeah,
So
so here's interesting about what Polkadot, like their whole thing is interoperability. So let's say that DM is hooked up to Polkadot via one of these parachain bridges. Well, if Flare is connected to Polkadot via parachain bridge as well, that provides you with an avenue to move between those networks. So like it doesn't have to be directly connected to Flare. It could be connected like indirectly through Polkadot in the future, and it could, provide a way to go between those two. And that's what's kind of cool, I think, about
nice.
this parachain idea is like they're just trying, Polkadot just wants to have this relay chain that has really fast finality of transactions and connecting these other blockchains. And, now we're seeing Flares getting connected to the XRPL. Flare connects there, it can bring XRP into Polkadot. So we can start seeing how these networks are going to be connected in the long run and what they're trying to do. So I just think it's really cool and an interesting future we could get into because like Flare to me, so Polkadot to me seems more like this huge marketplace of different stuff. Like they're going after robotics and smart city applications and different things like that. And Flare to me is very much seems like a financial network, while Polkadot seems more like a general purpose blockchain. So they're a little different, and Flare does a good job of unlocking the value of other blockchains that don't have smart contract capabilities yet. So I like that as well. They kind of have some different use cases. While they do both have the smart contract functionality, I can see where they can both carve their own niche in the space.
So Ferdy says, I want more Flare. Well, we'll be able to earn more Spark on Songbird. So we have an opportunity now to practice, participate, and learn the system, which I think will allow us to earn more Spark and just more assets in general, yield wise, on Flare once it gets going. Because having a test net that we could actually use with real value, we could talk about, we could make tutorials, we could show videos on, and we could show with real value, but it's not XRP value. It's not even Spark value. It's a second airdrop token and a fourth airdrop token we're using to play around with and make those videos. So I think we'll all have a better understanding going into Flare mainnet launch to be able to make more money. And I think we'll have a higher participation rate amongst the community, which I think will be good.
Cool. Well, I think this is a good point to
Yes.
go ahead and wrap up. I think I'm going to try and get some sun while it's still out. Good talking with everybody, seeing you guys in the chat, and
Have a
yeah,
good weekend.
absolutely. So this is the DeFi standard. I'm Patty XRP.